Hey, how's it going? Dr. Mike Mert here, the Specific Chiropractic Centers right here in Lake Country, Wisconsin. You're either watching this video for one of two reasons. One, you just started coming to the office, or two, someone you know wants to give you more information about our office. And that's what this is all about, a little bit more information about what we do in the office and really why we're different and why people see the changes that they see in their health. Something that we start off with at every single kind of initial visit is I always start with a question. And what that question is what do you want as far as your health is concerned if you could have anything? And I know that's a really big question and a really loaded question for a lot of people because, well, some people are dealing with some really chronic stuff. And some people, what they'll talk about, they'll be like, oh, I just want my neck pain gone or my back pain gone. And I'll joke with them and I'll say, well, we can always just go to the bar and we can order a bunch of shots and that neck pain or that back pain is probably going to go away. And then they start to understand the idea. It's like, okay, I want this pain to go away because I want to be able to lift up my kids again. Or I want this symptom to go away so that my kid doesn't have such crazy anger outbursts and all that stuff. And that's really what we're all about here at the Specific Chiropractic Centers, is partnering with people to get them resolution to their issues so they're able to do the things that they actually want to do again. And I know there's this really big trendy word out right now called wellness, and it's huge. It encapsulates so much things, or so many things, and I always tell people, don't be fooled by wellness, because I don't even really know what wellness means. There's so many things that talk about wellness and modern medicine that talks about wellness with medications and all that stuff, and it doesn't really make sense as a whole. And I always like to tell people that health is a multifaceted approach, and it really is it's really comprised of 5 things. We need proper sleep, proper nutrition, we need to exercise, we need a positive mental attitude, and the last thing we need is a healthy functioning nervous system. So with the proper exercise, we do a bunch of other videos with head trainer Lucas Nelson over at B Fitness, and we have a ton of videos about stretching and exercising and all that stuff. We've done nutritional videos as well, where we talk about proper eating and what really goes into that. Now, proper rest and proper sleep can be a little bit tricky because there's a lot of things that factor into that, including what we do here at the office. And a positive mental attitude is something that a lot of people overlook. And I always give the example. I saw a video on Facebook not that long ago, and what it talked about it looked at plants. And there was a plant, there were 2 plants put in a school, both cared for the same. One was told bullying things, and the other one was told positive, loving, reassuring things. And what was interesting is the one that was told bullying things kind of started to wilt away. And the one that was told positive, loving things was growing and thriving like it should be. So if a plant is sensitive to that, then us human beings are definitely sensitive to that. And a healthy functioning nervous system, we'll talk about that in a little bit here. So at this point, you might be asking yourself, am I healthy? And most of the time, if people feel good, if they don't feel any pain or anything like that, they'll say, yeah, I'm healthy. No, in a lot of people's minds, no symptoms equal health. And what's kind of unique at our office is we don't necessarily view symptoms as good or bad. I just view them as they just are. It's the body's way of kind of cause and effect type of deal. Now, what's interesting is if we look at definitions of health, if we look at Dorland's medical definition of health, it says, health is a state of optimal physical, mental, and social well-being, not merely the absence of disease or infirmities. Now, Webster's dictionary, how they define health is a condition of wholeness in which all of the organs are functioning 100% of the time. Now, what's interesting in both of those definitions, symptoms aren't mentioned at all. They're talking about the functioning of the body, and is the body really working how it's supposed to, and all of that stuff. So if we look at this, what society teaches is a symptom-based model, meaning symptoms or no symptoms equal health, and if you have symptoms, you have something going on. But that's not necessarily true, because I'm sure some of you know someone that was relatively healthy overall, and then something might have happened and then suddenly they weren't healthy, such as someone exercises all the time, or they eat really healthy and then they have a stroke or a heart attack or end up with cancer. So really, were they actually healthy this whole time? In my mind, they weren't. They had some underlying issue going on that was really causing them to be unhealthy all this time. They just weren't showing any sort of symptom going on. So feeling good doesn't necessarily equate to wellness. And that's why this whole wellness thing doesn't really make sense to me. And it shouldn't really make sense to you, because feeling good doesn't necessarily mean that you're 100% healthy. Now, a function-based model, that's what we focus on at the office, meaning that if you're functioning at 100%, you're 100% healthy. And I always tell people that feeling follows function, that once we get the body really working how it's supposed to, that's when people start to feel a heck of a lot better. Now, if we look at the basic physiology of the body, what controls everything in the body? I'll give you some time to think about that. Yeah, so some people might say the heart, some people might say the blood, some people might say the brain. And with the brain, it is somewhat the brain. But what's interesting is you can get shot in the head and you can actually still live. And I know that there's examples of that all over in society. But really it's the nervous system as a whole, which is comprised of the brain, the brainstem, and the spinal cord. And are these, like, does this system control some of the cells of the body, all the cells? Yeah, it controls really all of the cells of the body, and that's super important. And what's interesting is the nervous system is the only organ that is fully encased in bone. And why is that? Why is it the only organ system that's fully encased in bone? Well, it comes down to injury. If we have some sort of injury to that area, that usually causes some sort of major issue, whether it's paralysis or potentially death as well. Let me grab a prop for you guys. If we look at the normal functioning of the body, I'm gonna bring this giant paper clip into the frame here. Normal functioning of the body, we have the brain would be up here, and a cell, tissue, muscle, or organ would be down here. And this is with the clothespin, or with the safety pin closed like this. This represents normal functioning of the body. The brain sends a message to this cell, tissue, organ to do something, and this sends a message back up to the brain. And it can only respond by what this is telling it. So we need to make sure that all of this is connected. But what happens when we have this going on? Now, suddenly, these messages from this cell, tissue, organ, or muscle aren't getting to the brain how they're supposed to. And the brain can only react as well as the messages that are getting to it. So suddenly, the messages that are going to this organ, cell, tissue, muscle aren't really correct, because the messages going to the brain aren't correct either. And that's super important in regards to what we're doing at the office. And what we call this vertebral subluxation, meaning that there's a misalignment of those top two bones in the neck, which is negatively affecting the functioning of the nervous system, making it so the body isn't working at 100%. So what the goal is to make that adjustment and close that safety pin. And I think it's just a fun analogy that we can kind of give you guys. Now, if we have this issue going on to the lungs, what might that look like? Yeah, it could look like asthma. With this issue going to the heart, it could look like high blood pressure. Hormones, it could be hot flashes. Immune system, chronic colds and always sick. If we look at joints, it could be arthritis. Low back could be muscle spasms or low back pain. Stomach could be acid reflux. In the upper neck area, that can lead to headaches and migraines, anxiety and stress, depression, sleep issues, a bunch of stuff. So it's important that we kind of keep this closed and make sure that the body's really working how it's supposed to work. And I kind of mentioned it, but how do we close this safety pin? So yeah, what we need to do, we need to check the nervous system and make sure that nervous system is working how it's supposed to. And if it isn't, we need to provide a very specific chiropractic adjustment to close that system and make sure that everything is working how it's supposed to. So unlike other offices, we don't really provide that snap, crackle, and pop that a lot of people are used to when they think of a chiropractor. We really focus on measuring the nervous system and making sure that everything's working how it's supposed to. And if it isn't, we provide a very specific chiropractic adjustment. So when people do come in here, we adjust them one time, and that's what we see really needs to happen and get the body really working how it's supposed to overall. And yeah, like I said, the goal is to check your nervous system. So if we check the nervous system and we see that there's some sort of imbalance going on, we'll adjust you on our special table over here. And then you go and rest for 20 minutes. And that allows the body to really process the adjustment and make it so we don't have to keep adjusting over and over and over again. Now, if we check you and we see the nervous system's working how it's supposed to, then you're good to go. We're not gonna adjust you at all. And a lot of people get kind of weirded out at that at first. And we have to remember, if we were to provide an adjustment when the body doesn't need to be adjusted, we'd actually be causing more harm than good. And I think that's what can happen in other chiropractic offices is we'll go in at every single visit and we'll get adjusted at every single visit. And what can happen is suddenly we'll be getting adjusted correctly, and then the next time we'll be getting adjusted and we'll be getting adjusted like out of alignment. And it's this weird irky-jerky back and forth movement to where it's really hard to get long-term type results or like resolution to really what's going on. So why only 2 bones? So we work exclusively with the top 2 bones in the neck. And a lot of people ask us why. We'll have people come in with low back pain, digestion issues, mid back pain, shoulder issues, and wonder, why do we only work with the top 2 bones in the neck? And really the best analogy I have is a fuse box analogy. So if you're in your house and you walk in the house and you turn on your front room lights and turn on the living room lights and you go to the kitchen and you go to turn the kitchen lights on and they're not turning on and none of the outlets are working, you're not going to call an electrician to wire in new outlets and new lights in your kitchen. You're going to go to the basement or to a separate closet and check the fuse box and really make sure that all those switches are switched to on. And that's really how the body works as well. And where that fuse box is at the top of our neck, and more importantly, that brainstem area, which is encased in those top 2 bones in the neck. So that's why we worked with this area and make sure that all those switches are switched to on. And like I mentioned earlier, we really focus on the functioning of the body. And once we get the nervous system really working how it's supposed to, then people start to feel better. So feeling follows function, and that's really what we focus on here. And a good analogy of this in regards to how this area controls everything that's going on is Superman's story, or Christopher Reeves. Now, he fell off a horse and he broke the top bone in his neck, and suddenly he couldn't move his legs, he couldn't move his arms, he was paralyzed from the neck down. He needed an iron lung to breathe, he needed a pacemaker, he needed a feeding tube because his digestive tract didn't really work how it was supposed to. And what was interesting, do you guys know what he died of? Yeah, he died of a simple infection. An infection that your or I's body could totally overcome, that we would be totally fine fighting that infection and be totally healthy. But since his system was so bombarded and not working correctly, and there was such a huge shock and trauma to that system, it affected his immune system. And he wasn't able to fight off that simple infection that a lot of us could fight off no problem. So if you had a simple stone in your shoe and you're walking around and it's kind of hurting your foot, there's a couple options that could happen. You could limp to try and avoid putting pressure on it, but that would be a lot of limping. You could place a cushion in your shoe, making it so you wouldn't feel that stone as much. You could take some painkillers and like with the painkiller suddenly, you wouldn't feel that stone as much. Or you could just remove the stone. And what would be the best option? Yeah, to take your shoe off and remove the stone. That's pretty obvious, I think to everyone. And I just want to say that there is hope to what you have going on. You don't have to live with this long term. This doesn't have to be a chronic issue. Once we get the body really working how it's supposed to, we can kind of fix stuff that you have going on. And I know like what we talked about in the beginning, that that symptoms aren't necessarily a marker of health, meaning no symptoms doesn't mean you're totally healthy. And my goal is to make it so the body's working how it's supposed to, so that you're able to feel the best that you possibly can. And really, like I said, feeling follows function. And a good analogy I have with that, especially with symptoms, is if we go to a restaurant, we go to a buffet and we both get the same food, and suddenly the next day I call you and I'm like, man, I feel really sick, like I'm throwing up everywhere, this is not good. But you're like, oh, I feel fine. Well, in modern day and age, you would be the healthy one. But what if we learned that food was actually tainted, that the food wasn't healthy and that there was a problem with the food, it was rotten, suddenly I would be considered the healthy one because my body would be rejecting this food and getting it out of its system because it knows that it's bad food and that my body can't live correctly with it. Now, when it comes to healthcare, I realize stuff is relatively expensive, especially if we're looking at the medical route of things. It's extremely expensive to go to the hospital, to have ambulance rides, stuff like that. And I always like to tell people that what we do here at The Specific is really pennies on the dollar compared to the medical way of doing things and all of that stuff. So instead of walking uphill with your skis and battling all this stuff that's going on, what we do at The Specific is almost like strapping on those skis and going downhill and really working with the body and making sure that everything's working how it's supposed to and getting the body to maximum function and maximum health, which means you're going to feel a heck of a lot better. So I urge you, if you're interested in this at all, feel free to reach out to me. We're here to help. Something that I offer people all the time is complimentary consultations where you can come in, we sit down for 15 to 30 minutes, see if what we do here can even help. I'll give you a nervous system scan complimentary on myself. That'll kind of show us, are you a good candidate for care or should you go somewhere else? And I'll be able to tell you that really, really right away. So Specific Chiropractic can really help people you love and people you don't love. And I always like to end with this quote, and it's from someone that I truly admire. And what the quote is we never know how far-reaching something we may think, say, or do will impact and affect the lives of millions of those tomorrow. And I want to thank you guys so much for watching this video. Like I said, if you have any questions or you want to get in contact with us, let us know. I'll have my phone number and email at the end of this video. And yeah, keep passing this on to people you think might be able to benefit from this video. Thank you guys so much for watching. See you guys later.